I never imagined that my new electric blanket would become the center of a viral internet scandal that would bring down the most feared person in our suburban Phoenix neighborhood. But here we are. My name is Garrison, and I had just moved into the Saguaro Springs subdivision in Scottsdale, Arizona, 3 months prior. The house was perfect, a 4-bedroom with a pool in the back and a 2-car garage that I desperately needed for storage. I work as a software developer from home, so having that extra space was crucial. The neighborhood seemed quiet enough when I toured it, nothing that raised any red flags. Sure, the realtor mentioned there was an active HOA, but I figured it would be the standard lawn maintenance reminders and pool regulations. Boy, was I wrong. The trouble started on a Wednesday morning in late January. Arizona winters are mild, but the nights can get surprisingly cold, dropping into the 40s. I had ordered a top-of-the-line electric blanket online, one of those fancy ones with dual-zone heating and an automatic shut-off feature. Cost me nearly $200, but my girlfriend Claire had been complaining about being cold at night, and I wanted to surprise her when she visited that weekend. The package arrived while I was in a video conference, so the delivery driver left it in my garage like I had requested in the special instructions. I had left the garage door open about 2 feet specifically for deliveries, a system that had worked perfectly for the past few months. When my meeting ended around 3 in the afternoon, I went to retrieve the package. It was gone. I checked the tracking information on my phone. Delivered at 1:47 p.m. Photo confirmation showed the box sitting right inside my garage door. But now, 2 hours later, nothing. I walked around my garage, thinking maybe the wind had blown it somewhere, even though that made no logical sense. I checked my front porch, my backyard, even asked my neighbor if he had seen anything. That is when I remembered I had installed a security camera system just last week. I had mounted one camera above my garage, aimed to capture anyone approaching my driveway. I pulled up the app on my phone and scrolled back to 1:47 p.m. There it was. The delivery driver placing my package inside the garage, taking the confirmation photo, and leaving. Then at 2:15 p.m., a woman walked up my driveway. She was in her mid-50s, wearing a visor despite the overcast weather, and carrying a clipboard. She looked around, then bent down and peered into my garage through the small opening. After glancing over her shoulder, she reached in, grabbed my package, and walked away with it tucked under her arm. I could not believe what I was seeing. Who just steals a package in broad daylight? I watched the footage again, zooming in on her face. She looked familiar, but I could not place her immediately. Then I noticed the lanyard around her neck with an ID badge. I zoomed in further and could just make out the letters, HOA. My stomach dropped. This was someone from the Homeowners Association. This was not some random porch pirate. This was someone who had authority in the neighborhood, someone who knew exactly where I lived, probably had access to my personal information. I saved the video clip and tried to think rationally about my next move. I could call the police, but would they even care about a stolen package? I could confront her directly, but I did not even know who she was yet. I decided to post in our neighborhood Facebook group, keeping it vague at first. Hey neighbors, did anyone else have a package go missing from their garage today? Happened around 2:15 p.m. Just trying to figure out if there is a thief in the area. Within 10 minutes, my phone was blowing up with comments. Apparently, I was not the first victim. Over the past 6 months, at least a dozen people reported missing packages, missing items from their garages, and other strange thefts. Everyone had assumed it was kids from the nearby high school or random criminals passing through. Nobody suspected the HOA. Then someone named Patricia commented, Was it a woman with short blonde hair and a visor? Because that sounds like Linda from the HOA board. Linda. Of course. Linda Patterson, the HOA president. I had met her exactly once during my move in orientation. She had spent 45 minutes lecturing me about garbage can placement, approved paint colors, and Chinese letter rules about holiday decorations. She had the energy of someone who had finally found power after years of having none, and she wielded it like a weapon. I responded to Patricia's comment. I have security footage. Want to see it before I do anything else? My doorbell rang 20 minutes later. Patricia stood there with 3 other neighbors, all looking eager and slightly angry. I invited them in and pulled up the footage on my laptop, connecting it to my TV so everyone could see clearly. We watched in silence as Linda Patterson walked up to my garage, stole my package, and walked away. When the clip ended, Patricia let out a long whistle. I knew it, she said. I knew something was off about her. Last summer, my husband's golf clubs disappeared from our garage. We had left the door open for maybe an hour while we unloaded groceries. Never found them. Filed a police report and everything. Another neighbor, Marcus, shook his head. My wife's bicycle. Brand new, we had just assembled it, gone from our driveway while we were at church. This was back in October. The stories kept coming. Linda had apparently been running a one-woman crime spree through Saguaro Springs, taking advantage of her position to case houses and steal whatever she wanted. The boldness of it was astounding. You need to post this video, Patricia said firmly. Everyone needs to see what she has been doing. I hesitated. Going viral was not something I had planned on. But these people deserved justice, and Linda deserved to be exposed. I uploaded the clip to YouTube, titled it HOA President Caught Stealing Package from Garage, and shared it to our neighborhood Facebook group next door and Twitter for good measure. Then I called the Scottsdale Police Department. The officer who took my call sounded bored at first. Package theft is incredibly common and most cases go unsolved. But when I mentioned I had clear video evidence and that the thief was the HOA president, his tone shifted. Can you send me that footage? He asked. I sent it over while we were still on the phone. He put me on hold for a few minutes, and when he came back, he sounded much more interested. Mr. Garrison, we are going to send an officer to your location to take a formal statement. What you have here is pretty clear-cut. We will be following up with Miss Patterson as well. In the meantime, do not delete that footage and do not confront her directly. A police officer arrived within an hour. Her name was Officer Rodriguez, and she was professional and thorough. She took my statement, collected the video evidence, and explained the process. This is technically theft, which in Arizona can be a misdemeanor or felony depending on the value of the stolen items. Your electric blanket probably falls into the misdemeanor category, but if we can connect her to the other thefts your neighbors mentioned, this could become a much bigger case. What happens now? I asked. We will contact Miss Patterson and ask her to come in for questioning. If she confesses and returns the stolen property, the DA might offer a plea deal. If not, we will pursue charges and let the courts handle it. After Officer Rodriguez left, I checked my phone. My video had been up for less than 3 hours and already had over 50,000 views. The comments section was exploding. People from all over the country were chiming in with their own HOA horror stories, offering sympathy and expressing outrage. Someone had even identified Linda's car in the video using the license plate and posted that she drove a white Lexus SUV, which apparently she had been bragging about at HOA meetings. My girlfriend Claire called me around 8 that evening. She lives in Temp and works as a nurse, so her schedule is unpredictable. Ryan, "Are you the garage theft video guy?" she asked immediately. "How did you already hear about it?" "It is all over TikTok. Someone reposted your video and it has like 2 million views. Your driveway is famous." I groaned. This was spiraling faster than I had anticipated. I checked TikTok and sure enough, multiple accounts had reposted the footage. Some had added commentary, others had put funny music over it. One even animated sunglasses dropping onto Linda's face when she grabbed the package with the caption, "Thug Life." "This is insane," I muttered. "Did you call the police?" Claire asked. "Yeah, they already came by." "They are investigating." "Good. She deserves it." "Oh, and I showed the video to my coworkers and one of them lives in your neighborhood. She said Linda also runs the pool committee and has been embezzling money from the HOA dues." That was a new development. If Linda was not just stealing packages, but also stealing HOA funds, this was going to get even messier. I spent the rest of the evening monitoring the videos spread across the internet. It had taken on a life of its own. News outlets were starting to pick it up. Local Phoenix news channels were requesting interviews. A reporter from the Arizona Republic emailed me asking for comment. This had gone from a simple package theft to a full-blown media circus in less than 12 hours. The next morning, I woke up to my phone ringing at 7 a.m. It was an unknown number, but I answered anyway, thinking it might be the police with an update. "Is this Ryan Garrison?" a woman's voice asked, shaking with anger. "Who is this?" "This is Linda Patterson. You need to take that video down immediately. You are ruining my reputation and violating my privacy." I sat up in bed, suddenly wide awake. "You stole my property, Linda. I have every right to share that video." "It was a misunderstanding. I thought the package was for the HOA. We were expecting a delivery that day." "So you just reached into my garage and took it without checking the label?" "I will return your blanket. Just take the video down." "No, you have been stealing from people for months. Everyone knows now." "You do not understand what you have done," she hissed. "I will make your life in this neighborhood hell. I will fine you for every little violation. I will make you wish you never moved here." "Are you seriously threatening me right now? After you committed theft on camera?" She hung up. I immediately called Officer Rodriguez and reported the threatening phone call. She thanked me for the information and said it would be added to the case file. She also mentioned that Linda had retained a lawyer and was refusing to cooperate with the investigation. By noon, the video had over 5 million views across all platforms. My inbox was flooded with interview requests, including one from a producer at Good Morning America. The story had everything people loved: a clear villain, video evidence, a power-hungry HOA president getting her comeuppance. It was perfect internet outrage fuel. I agreed to do an interview with the local ABC affiliate. They sent a crew to my house that afternoon. The reporter, a sharp woman named Jessica Martinez, was professional but clearly excited about the story. "This video has really struck a nerve with people," she said as her cameraman set up. "Everyone has an HOA horror story. Yours just happens to have proof." The interview was straightforward. I explained what happened, showed the footage again, and talked about the other neighbors who had reported thefts. Jessica asked if I had heard from Linda, and I debated mentioning the threatening phone call, but decided to keep it simple. She called me this morning and asked me to take the video down. I refused. "What do you want to see happen?" "I want her held accountable. This is not just about my electric blanket. She has been abusing her position and stealing from families in this neighborhood. That's not okay." The segment aired on the evening news and was immediately posted online. It added even more fuel to the fire. The story was now officially mainstream news. That evening, I received an email from the HOA board. It was a formal notice stating that an emergency meeting had been called for Saturday morning to address the situation. All homeowners were invited to attend. The email was signed by Karen Hendricks, the vice president, and made no mention of Linda by name, but everyone knew what the meeting was about. Saturday morning arrived cold and clear. The meeting was held at the neighborhood clubhouse, a bland beige building near the community pool. I arrived 15 minutes early and found the parking lot already packed. Inside, every seat was filled and people lined the walls. I estimated over 200 residents had shown up in a neighborhood of maybe 300 homes. This was unprecedented. I found a spot near the back and waited. Patricia spotted me and waved me over to where she and Marcus had saved a seat. "This is wild," Marcus whispered. "I have lived here for 12 years and have never seen this many people at an HOA meeting." At exactly 10 a.m., the board members filed in and took their seats at the front table. Linda was notably absent. Karen Hendricks, a thin woman in her 60s with steel gray hair, called the meeting to order. "Thank you all for coming," she began, her voice tight. "We are here to address recent events involving our HOA president, Linda Patterson. As many of you are aware, video evidence has surfaced showing Linda allegedly taking a package from a resident's property." "Allegedly," someone shouted from the crowd. "It is on video," Karen held up her hand. "Please let me finish." The board has been made aware of these allegations, and we take them very seriously. Linda has stepped down from her position as president effective immediately. The room erupted in chatter. Karen had to bang her gavel several times to restore order. "However," she continued, "stepping down is not enough for many of you, and frankly, not enough for the board either. We have launched an internal investigation into HOA finances and operations. We have also hired a forensic accountant to review all transactions from the past 3 years." That got everyone's attention. Patricia nudged me and whispered, "They found something." Karen cleared her throat. "What I am about to share is preliminary, but we believe residents deserve transparency. Our accountant has identified approximately $47,000 in unexplained expenses and transfers over the past 18 months. These transactions were all authorized solely by Linda Patterson, without board approval as required by our bylaws." The room exploded. People were shouting, demanding answers, asking how this could have happened. Karen looked exhausted. "We are cooperating fully with law enforcement. The Scottsdale Police Department has opened an investigation into both the theft allegations and the financial discrepancies. We have frozen all HOA accounts and implemented new financial controls. No single board member will have unilateral access to funds going forward." Someone stood up near the front. "What about restitution? She stole from all of us." "If the police investigation results in charges and a conviction, restitution will likely be part of any sentence. Additionally, the HOA will be pursuing a civil lawsuit to recover the missing funds. We have already consulted with our attorney." I raised my hand and Karen called on me. I stood up, feeling 200 pairs of eyes turned toward me. "Hi, I am Ryan Garrison. My security footage started all of this. I just want to say thank you to the board for taking this seriously and acting quickly. My question is, how did Linda have this much unchecked power in the first place?" Karen sighed. "That is a fair question. Frankly, previous boards were too trusting and too lazy. Linda volunteered for everything, took on every responsibility, and the rest of us were happy to let her because it meant less work for us. That was a mistake, and we take full responsibility for not providing proper oversight." The meeting continued for another hour. Residents shared their own stories of items going missing, suspiciously high HOA dues, and Linda's generally tyrannical behavior. One woman described how Linda had threatened to fine her $500 because her mailbox was the wrong shade of beige. Another man talked about how Linda had tried to ban him from using the community pool because his kids were too loud. By the time the meeting ended, a clear picture had emerged. Linda Patterson had transformed the HOA presidency into her personal fiefdom, stealing money, stealing property, and bullying residents into compliance. And she had gotten away with it for years because nobody had challenged her. As people filed out, several neighbors came up to thank me for posting the video. Patricia hugged me and said, "You did the right thing. This neighborhood needed this." The following Monday, the Arizona Republic published a front-page story about the scandal. They had done their own investigation and discovered that Linda had a previous theft conviction from 15 years ago in California, something that apparently never came up when she joined the HOA board. The article also detailed the embezzlement allegations and included quotes from multiple residents. My video had now surpassed 20 million views across all platforms. It had been featured on CNN, Fox News, and even made it onto The Daily Show, where Trevor Noah did a whole segment about HOA tyranny. I was getting recognized at grocery stores. It was surreal. On Wednesday, Officer Rodriguez called with an update. "Mr. Garrison, I wanted to let you know that we arrested Linda Patterson this morning. She has been charged with 1 count of theft for taking your package and multiple counts of embezzlement related to the HOA funds. The total amount we have confirmed so far is actually closer to $60,000. She was arraigning this afternoon. Wow, is there anything you need from me? Just be prepared to testify if this goes to trial. But between you and me, with your video evidence and the financial records, I expect she will take a plea deal. Her lawyer has already reached out about negotiations. What kind of sentence are we looking at? Hard to say. Theft plus embezzlement, first-time offense in Arizona but with a prior in California. Could be probation, could be jail time, probably somewhere in between. She will also have to make restitution." I thanked Officer Rodriguez and hung up. Claire was sitting on my couch, having finally gotten a few days off work. She had been following the whole saga with amused fascination. "I still cannot believe your electric blanket caused all of this," she said. "I know. If the delivery driver had come 30 minutes later, or if I had not installed those cameras, none of this would have happened." You think she would have kept getting away with it? Probably. People are too busy with their own lives to pay attention to HOA finances. And the stealing seemed random enough that nobody connected the dots. Over the next few weeks, more details emerged. Local news did follow-up stories interviewing other victims of Linda's thefts. The golf clubs, the bicycle, a leaf blower, a set of patio furniture, even someone's doormat. Linda had been taking whatever caught her eye, apparently storing or selling the items for extra cash. Her house was searched, and police recovered several stolen items, including my electric blanket, which was returned to me in a sealed evidence bag once photos had been taken. The embezzlement scheme was more sophisticated. Linda had been creating fake vendor invoices for landscaping, pool maintenance, and repairs that never happened. She would then transfer HOA funds to accounts she controlled and pocket the money. She had also been inflating actual vendor costs, pocketing the difference. The forensic accountant eventually determined the total theft was $73,000 over 3 years. The HOA board implemented massive reforms. They hired a professional management company to handle finances, established term limits for board positions, and required monthly financial transparency reports for all homeowners. Karen Hendricks took over as interim president and proved to be far more reasonable and competent than Linda had ever been. The viral nature of the video created its own consequences. Linda became a meme, her face plastered across the internet with captions mocking HOA Karens everywhere. Someone created a change.org petition to ban her from ever serving on an HOA board again, which got over 500,000 signatures. The attention was relentless. In March, about 6 weeks after the initial incident, Linda's lawyer arranged a plea agreement. She pleaded guilty to 1 count of felony theft and 1 count of felony embezzlement. In exchange for her guilty plea, other charges were dropped. The judge sentenced her to 3 years in prison, suspended to 18 months, with the remainder to be served on probation. She was also ordered to pay full restitution of $73,000 to the HOA, plus $1,500 to me for the electric blanket and associated costs. I attended the sentencing hearing. Linda looked nothing like the confident, threatening woman who had called me that morning after the video went up. She was thin, pale, and her lawyer did most of the talking. When the judge asked if she had anything to say, she stood and faced the gallery. "I know what I did was wrong," she said quietly. "I let my position go to my head. I thought I was helping the neighborhood by keeping standards high, but I crossed lines I should not have crossed. I am sorry to everyone I hurt. It was not a great apology, but it was something." The judge was not impressed. "Miss Patterson, you abused a position of trust for personal gain. You stole from your neighbors, people who trusted you to act in their best interests. This was not a momentary lapse in judgment. This was a pattern of criminal behavior spanning years. Only the sentence guidelines and your lack of serious criminal history prevent me from imposing a harsher sentence. I hope you use your time in custody and on probation to reflect on your actions and make better choices going forward." Linda nodded and was led away by a bailiff to begin serving her sentence. Because Arizona allows work release for non-violent offenders, she would likely spend her nights and weekends in county jail, but be allowed to work during the day to earn money for restitution. It was not a harsh punishment by any means, but it was justice. After the hearing, I met with Officer Rodriguez in the courthouse hallway. She shook my hand and congratulated me on seeing it through. "Not many people would have pushed this as hard as you did," she said. "Most people would have accepted an apology and moved on. You helped uncover something much bigger." "I just wanted my blanket back," I joked. "Well, you got that and took down a corrupt HOA president. Not a bad outcome." The media attention finally started to die down in April. My video would occasionally resurface when someone wrote about HOA abuse or neighborhood crime, but I was no longer getting interview requests daily. Life in Saguaro Springs returned to something approaching normal. The HOA board used the settlement money they expected to eventually receive from Linda to make actual improvements to the neighborhood. They repaved the streets, upgraded the pool area, and installed security cameras at all common area entrances. The new management company sent detailed monthly financial statements to every homeowner, showing exactly where dues were being spent. It was a dramatic improvement. Claire and I got more serious after everything settled down. She joked that she fell for me because I was internet famous, but really it was because she saw how I handled a crazy situation without losing my mind. She moved into my house in May, and we finally got to use that electric blanket, though the Arizona weather was already too warm for it by then. I ran into Karen Hendricks at the grocery store in June. She was shopping for supplies for a neighborhood barbecue the HOA was hosting. "Ryan, good to see you," she said warmly. Are you and Claire coming to the barbecue on Saturday? We will be there. How are things going with the board? So much better. We have 5 new board members who actually care about the neighborhood, not about power. We have never been more functional. And honestly, we owe a lot of that to you. I just posted a video. You did more than that. You forced us all to pay attention and take responsibility. This neighborhood is better because you did not just accept what happened to you. The barbecue on Saturday was packed with neighbors, many of whom I had never met despite living there for almost a year. People were friendly, the food was good, and there was a genuine sense of community that I had not felt before. The Linda situation had paradoxically brought everyone together. Marcus pulled me aside at one point. "Hey, I wanted you to know, I got my golf clubs back. Police found them in Linda's storage unit. After 3 years, I never thought I would see them again." "That is great, man. Do they still work?" "Perfectly. I am playing 18 holes tomorrow to celebrate." As the evening wound down and Claire and I walked home under the desert stars, I reflected on how a simple stolen package had changed everything. My video had been viewed over 30 million times now. It had become a cultural touchstone about HOA abuse, suburban power dynamics, and the importance of standing up to petty tyrants. But more importantly, it had changed my neighborhood for the better. Linda Patterson was facing consequences for her actions. Families had gotten closure and stolen property back. The HOA was functioning transparently and effectively for the first time in years. And I had learned that sometimes doing the right thing means making noise and refusing to let something slide just because it is easier. My electric blanket, now infamous, sat folded in my closet. Claire and I had decided to keep it as a reminder, though we probably would not need it again until November at the earliest. Sometimes I would show it to visitors and tell the story, watching their eyes widen as they realized this was the electric blanket from the viral video. A reporter from a podcast about viral internet moments reached out in July, asking if I would be willing to be interviewed about the experience. I agreed, and we spent an hour on the phone talking about everything that had happened. The episode came out a few weeks later and reignited interest in the story for a brief moment. The comments section was full of people sharing their own HOA nightmares, and several mentioned that my video had inspired them to investigate their own boards more carefully. One comment stuck with me. "This guy probably saved his neighbors thousands of dollars and did not even mean to. He just wanted his blanket back." That is the most relatable hero origin story ever. I never set out to be a hero or go viral. I just wanted the $200 electric blanket I had ordered for my girlfriend. But in pursuing that simple goal, I had stumbled into a much larger story about accountability, community, and the dangers of unchecked power, even at the smallest suburban level. Linda Patterson served her full 18-month sentence without incident and began her probation period in September. I heard through the neighborhood grapevine that she moved to New Mexico to live with family, unable to face the embarrassment of staying in Arizona, where she had become infamous. Her house went up for sale and sold quickly to a young couple with twins who seemed lovely and had no interest in joining the HOA board. The new board threw a 1-year anniversary party in October, marking 1 year since Linda's arrest. It was partly tongue-in-cheek, but also a genuine celebration of how far the neighborhood had come. Someone made a cake decorated with a cartoon electric blanket. Everyone laughed, including me. Karen gave a short speech about lessons learned and the importance of community vigilance. "We got complacent," she said. "We let one person have too much control because it was convenient. Never again. This neighborhood belongs to all of us, and we all have to take responsibility for keeping it healthy." There was genuine applause, not the polite golf claps you usually hear at HOA events. As fall turned to winter and the desert nights grew cold again, Claire and I finally broke out the electric blanket. It worked perfectly, keeping us warm through December nights that dipped into the 30s. Every time I turned it on, I thought about the absurd chain of events it had triggered: a package stolen from a garage, a security camera that happened to be installed just days before, a viral video seen by millions, an arrest, an investigation, a conviction, a neighborhood transformed. All because Linda Patterson got greedy and thought she was above consequences. The Scottsdale Police Department asked if they could use my security footage in training materials about the importance of residential security cameras. I agreed, amused that my garage was now part of police academy curriculum. Officer Rodriguez told me the video had helped solve 2 other cases where residents recognized their own stolen property in Linda's house during the search. By Christmas, life had fully returned to normal. The video still lived on the internet, forever archived in the pantheon of viral justice moments, but I was no longer recognized at grocery stores. Claire and I hosted a holiday party and invited the neighbors who had supported me through everything. Patricia, Marcus, Karen, and a dozen others crowded into my living room, drinking wine and swapping stories. "Remember when you posted asking if anyone else was missing packages?" Patricia laughed. I knew immediately something bigger was happening. Linda had been too smug for too long. "I still cannot believe she called you and threatened you," Marcus added. "That took real stupidity." "Pride comes before the fall," Karen said wisely. "Linda thought she was untouchable. She thought her position made her immune." "Your video proved that nobody is above accountability, not even the HOA president." As my guests left that night, bundled against the cold desert air, I stood in my doorway and looked out at the neighborhood. Strings of Christmas lights decorated houses up and down the street. In the distance, I could hear children laughing in someone's backyard. It felt peaceful and safe in a way it had not before. Claire came up behind me and wrapped her arms around my waist. "What are you thinking about?" "Just that I am glad we installed those cameras. And glad I did not just let it go when the package went missing." "Me too. This place is better because you made noise." I closed the door and we retreated to our bedroom, where the electric blanket was already warming the bed. As I climbed under the covers, I felt genuinely content. Justice had been served, my neighborhood was thriving, and the woman I loved was beside me. Linda Patterson had stolen an electric blanket from my garage, but in doing so, she had accidentally exposed herself and lost everything. The irony was not lost on me. If she had just ordered her own blanket online, she would still be HOA president, still embezzling money, still terrorizing neighbors. Instead, she was in New Mexico starting over with a felony record and a destroyed reputation. The security footage that went viral had changed all of that. 24 seconds of video that showed the truth plainly and undeniably. No amount of charm or excuses could overcome what people saw with their own eyes. That was the power of evidence, of documentation, of refusing to accept being a victim quietly. I fell asleep that night warm and comfortable, the electric blanket doing its job perfectly. Somewhere in New Mexico, I imagined Linda was probably cold, both literally and metaphorically. She had learned a hard lesson about consequences, about overreach, about the danger of thinking you are smarter than everyone else, and I had learned something too. That standing up for yourself matters. That documenting things matters. That communities can change when people care enough to demand better. And that sometimes, The smallest things, like a stolen electric blanket, can become catalysts for much larger transformations. The Garrison Springs HOA continued to function smoothly through the new year. Dues were spent appropriately, financial reports were clear and detailed, and board meetings were actually about maintaining and improving the neighborhood rather than stroking anyone's ego. It was everything an HOA should be and rarely is. I never deleted the viral video. It remained online as a permanent record, a warning to other HOA officials who might think about abusing their positions, and as validation for every person who has ever felt powerless against bureaucratic tyranny. The comments continued to roll in, thousands of them, people sharing their stories and thanking me for exposing Linda. One comment from a few months prior stuck with me. "This is what happens when ordinary people refuse to be pushed around. You are not a lawyer or a politician or anyone special. You are just a guy who knew right from wrong and had the guts to do something. We need more people like you." I was not sure I deserved that level of praise. I had simply documented a theft and shared the evidence, but I understood what they meant. Too often, people see something wrong and do nothing because it is easier, because they do not want to make waves, because they assume someone else will handle it. I had not done that, and it made all the difference. As winter gave way to spring, Claire and I talked about our future. We got engaged in March, deciding to build our life together in this house, in this neighborhood that we had helped transform. We would get married in the fall, a small ceremony with close friends and family. Patricia insisted on helping plan it, and Karen offered to let us use the clubhouse for the reception. "Only if we do not have to deal with HOA approval forms," I joked. "I think we can waive those for you," Karen replied with a grin. The electric blanket was packed away for the season, stored carefully in my closet alongside other winter items. It had served its purpose, and then some. Claire suggested we should write a thank you note to it, which made me laugh but also seemed oddly appropriate. My life had changed in unexpected ways because of what happened. I was more engaged in my community, more aware of how local institutions functioned, and more confident in my ability to stand up when something was wrong. These were not things I had anticipated when I moved to Scottsdale to take a new job and start fresh. But that is how life works sometimes. You think you are in control, following your plan, and then something unexpected happens. A package gets stolen. A video goes viral. And suddenly, you are at the center of a story much bigger than yourself, forced to decide who you are going to be and what you are going to stand for. I am glad I chose to fight. I am glad I posted that video. I am glad I did not let Linda Patterson intimidate me or buy me off. Because in the end, it was not really about the electric blanket at all. It was about whether someone could abuse their power without consequences, and whether ordinary people would demand better. The answer, at least in Garrison Springs, Arizona, was a resounding yes. We demanded better. We got better. And it all started with 24 seconds of security footage and one man refusing to just let it go. That is my story. The story of how I became accidentally internet famous, took down a corrupt HOA president, and learned that sometimes the smallest acts of resistance can lead to the biggest changes. Linda Patterson stole my electric blanket from my garage. The security footage went viral. And she resigned in disgrace before ultimately being convicted and sentenced. Justice, in the end, prevailed. And my neighborhood was better for it.